Hello and good day. ShawnJ here, and welcome to Underneath the Shade Tree. On today's episode, I'm pleased to be catching up with my dear friend Bertram Johnson as he shares his path to self-love and worth, surviving childhood trauma, and how to live out loud, black and proud. So grab yourself a beverage or a snack and join us underneath the shade tree. Hello, darling. How are you?
I'm well, ShawnJ. How are you today?
I am splendiferous, and welcome to Underneath the Shade Tree with ShawnJ. Today, my guest is Bertram Johnson. Bertram, say hey to the folks.
Hey, folks. How y'all doing?
So, Bertram, how do
you seen by you? I guess I'm not seeing them. But...
Exactly, but they see you. How do you self-identify?
I am a gay black man.
Cool. And where are you originally from?
I grew up in a small town in Northeast Florida called Yulee, Florida, north of Jacksonville.
When did you leave there?
I finished college in '92, and I went to school in Gainesville. So I haven't lived in Florida since 1992.
Okay.
Then I across the country and back to the East Coast.
And where do you live now?
Currently, my husband and I live in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn!
But we are not in Brooklyn right now. We are quarantining from Barbados.
Oh, poor thing.
Yes.
That has got to be so difficult.
Yeah, and so we've been here for not quite a month. We came down right before the election happened, the week before the election. Jason's birthday was election day, which was part of the reason to get out of the country. And then we celebrated our 4-year anniversary that same week. And then we've just been watching the deliberations ever since. So we're praying we have a reason to get back to the U.S.
Yes, I believe the sun will rise.
I trust it will. I pray it will.
It has to, because otherwise it can be a dark and gloomy sight for quite a while.
For a long time, yes.
So, do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a younger sister who's 7.5 years younger, and she lives in Jacksonville with my niece and her husband, or my sister, her husband, and my niece. And then my mom is still in Florida, and then my brother and his family and my niece there live in California. So much far away from me.
Cool. And what would you say is your line of work?
I do a variety of things. I'm sort of my role is primarily a pastor. I finished seminary in '96, and when I moved to New York to work at a church, I've worked at 2 churches. I'm currently working at Union Theological Seminary. My title there is Interfaith Minister, which basically means I'm a campus pastor and I support students as they go through the discernment process of seminary. But outside of that, and that's part-time, and right now I have a few part-time jobs. The thing that's consuming most of my time is actually working on a faith-based initiative to help raise awareness about COVID prevention research among both faith communities and among communities that are most disproportionately impacted by the virus, which are African Americans, Latinx folks, and Native Americans. And I've started that work back in September.
Wow. Nice. We need that. We need us involved in that process.
Yes, absolutely. And so trying to help, but just yesterday did a project or a presentation for a group of churches out of New York and New Jersey. Felt like that was a good success in reaching that Black community or some of those communities.
Nice. What is a favorite thing for you to do?
Favorite thing for me to do? Gosh, there are many. The first thing that came to mind is play tennis.
Okay.
I love to dance, and I love to eat good food. So, that's 3, but those are the things that came to mind first.
But 2 of those keep you active so that you can have good food.
Right. You got to balance it out. You can't just do the one thing. You can't just eat the good food. You got to, get some exercise too.
Yeah. So got a good sandwich there. Tennis, eating, dancing. So yes.
Yeah, it's hard to dance in these. I mean, it's hard to dance like we want to dance, in these COVID days. Because last time I was at a club, I don't know.
Oh, honey, the club. What is that? I
It's
mean,
this dark place where people are too close to each other. That
yes.
out.
Stepping on your feet and pushing this like yeah, that I don't miss. But my little moments to dance around the living room, as they say in the play.
Yes.
Raise your hands. How do we know each other?
We know each other from when we both lived in Seattle, Washington, and I'm not sure how we met initially. I mean, there's only so many black people in Seattle. There are only so many black gay men in Seattle, and so it's a very small fraternity of sorts. And you're also a performer, and I was, both of us worked in the arts in our time there. So I'm not sure if it was which collaboration came forward, but yes. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember in passing, I saw you. I think it was at a movie theater. I was with my friend Zach, and I just saw you in passing. And
I remember having a crush on Zach. So
say what?
I remember having a crush on your friend Zach. So maybe
Yes,
that's how.
yes. I think I remember that. And but we didn't know each other. Like I think it was just sort of like we may have probably met through some dance thing or something. I really don't know specifically where the moment was, but here we are.
That was probably over 20 years ago.
Yes, yes, because
I moved
I've
to
been.
Seattle in '96, and I don't know when we met, but yeah, I'm guessing it was over 20 years ago. I know it was over 20.
Yeah, because I moved there in '95, left there in 2011, and you had already. Were you still there?
Yeah, I was still there. I left in 2016.
Yeah. So yeah, it's. Woo, honey. Oh, and you celebrated a milestone birthday this year.
I did celebrate a milestone birthday this year. I turned 50.
Yes, fierce and 50.
Fierce and 50. COVID 50. But
Yeah,
every day is a gift.
yeah. I tell folks that because a lot of folks don't make it to 3 years old. So be thankful and happy about that.
And it was best if it was outside. We did an outdoor thing, my friend's farm, and so yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, see, you do what you have to do to celebrate yourself. No matter how big or how small. What is something that has made you the most proudest?
I don't know if it's I mean, there are many things in my life of which I'm proud. I feel really blessed to have the life that I do. Um, I think the thing that I value most is probably the relationships that I have, and so that's not like a tangible thing, even
Yeah.
though it feels that way. But like knowing you for over 20 years, and although we don't talk often, being able to connect and feel like we can have a real conversation, and like if I was in a crisis and you were there, I feel like I could trust you to be there for me. But I have many relationships like that in my life that have sustained me for a very long time. So that's the thing that I'm proudest about. I will say this other piece though is that I was recently doing some genealogy work, ancestry, and was able to find I don't know if he's my great 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 maternal grandfather, who was born of a black woman and a white man. So um, his name was Green McCrae. He was born in the 1800s. He was born into slavery. And just knowing the history of my family and being able to see genealogical records of, who were the ancestors who came before me, and knowing that we weren't born in this country to survive. We weren't born to thrive. And to look at what each successive generation has given to the one coming behind it, like recognizing the relationships that I have and how my parents created a way. My grandparents made a way for my parents. My parents made a way for me and my siblings. And I'm grateful to be in this line of ancestors who sustained great atrocities, but have created a life.
Yeah.
I hold on to that in the midst of. I mean, so it's all about relationship.
Yes. And that takes work because I think a lot of folks take that for granted that
Hmm.
relationships just automatically happen. They don't. They have to be nurtured. They have to be tended to on the regular basis. And I think, to your point, it may not be tangible, but it's totally for real and
Yeah.
authentic, I think, and good. So,
And well, and one other thing, this isn't something. I mean, it is an accomplishment, but in a different sense. That I am the first out Black person to be ordained in the Presbyterian Church USA, and I don't know if you knew that.
I
And
think it's been a while, though, right?
yeah, I mean, like, well in 2014 is when I got ordained, technically,
Okay. Because I
but
think you may have posted it. Or, yeah. It was like, yeah, that's something to be proud of.
I mean, I know there were I know people who were in ministry before me, but they weren't out yet, or the polity, the rules of the church didn't allow them to be out. But I was the first person who could stand up as a gay man and do that, and that feels like a great accomplishment. But again, I know that I stand on the shoulders of the men and women who, the siblings who came before me to make that possible for me. So I don't want to just say this is about me, but I want to recognize all of them in this work.
I think that's a given. I think we don't walk through this world or walk into a room without our ancestors with us. I think even if we don't consciously acknowledge them, they are always there. So we don't do anything on our own. It's sort of like all of their pain, sacrifice, suffering
Hmm.
was to help us get to where we are and beyond. Like we're not there yet,
Yeah,
but
right,
yeah,
absolutely. Just want to give respect, to those who deserve
I
it.
hear you.
Mhm.
I hear you.
Yeah.
What challenges have you encountered that have helped shaped you, and how and why?
Um, the thing that comes to mind first is I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and um, that was a deep pain for me growing up, and I mean, even throughout my life. But I think coming to terms with that and the growth that I've been able to experience for myself, um, I think the sense of self love that I continue to grow in, and then the compassion that it's given me for people around me. With that experience, or just the suffering that people go through, because you just don't know other people's stories, you don't know other people's pain, and I think it's given me a greater sense of compassion and understanding and grace for other people. Um, and I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think the way through which I've um, been able to walk through that journey and the support that people offered me, and the care that I've received from others has empowered me to do the same for others. And so I know it's a challenging thing to talk about for a lot of people, but I feel like in my position in my life that I have a platform to talk about these things that for some of us have been very hurtful, and sometimes even there's shame around it. And so the way for me speaking about it helps give someone else maybe the freedom in their life to find a form of healing that maybe they hadn't yet.
How would you say you navigated getting to that point?
Um, I would say that I always knew it was, well, there's a point where I knew it was wrong. The thing that was happening to me by this person in my life who was a respected member of our community and friend of the family kind of thing. So there was a point where I knew that it was wrong, and then um, I knew that I realized that I could get help. So I soon, in my early 20s, I started going to see a therapist, and therapy was significant for me, and finding the tools to love myself, to find healing, to confront the person about it, to speak up in my family, to other family members who had kids who might be at risk. Um,
Ah,
and so doing some of that work was all of that work. And when I was in grad school, when I was in seminary, I found a friend with a similar story. And together, he and I started, um, with the support of the institution itself, a support group for adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And I think that was also, I was 23 or 4 at the time, but being able to do that felt like a transformative and healing moment, a new path for me to begin.
Yeah, that's a gift. The ability to turn something painful into a hope for others and helping others through that is it's the beautiful spirit that you are. Yes, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Uh, this might tie into some of that. So, what is a one of, if probably many, greatest lesson you've learned thus far in your life, and what has it? How has it informed how you move through the world?
Um, Greatest lessons, I would say maybe it's never too late. It's never too early to love yourself, or too late, for that matter. Because I think because of the experience I went through as a child, I viewed myself as unlovable, as someone who was, I don't want to say dirty, but like there was something wrong about me, that I was marred, or yeah, I guess maybe I did see myself as being dirty in some ways. And so I didn't begin the process of self love until much later in my life. And so the thing I would say, people say, like, what would you say to your younger self? It's like, love yourself today. And I think the practice, the decision and practice of loving ourselves today gives us the freedom to, and the ability to love and be in relationship with other people, to honor ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our truth. And when you're loving yourself, it's also hard to hate other people. That you can name the wrong that you see and experience, but you don't have to be bound by the experience that you had or to hate them. And so I think if we all practice self love more, we would be in a far better place than the world is right now.
True that. I think the challenge for folks is they don't know how to get to that point. There's been all this noise and distraction, and people don't spend time with themselves to figure out how they are and why they are the way they are. And that work has to be done either with a therapist, if you can reach out to one, or with with yourself, to simply like, I'm an asshole. Why am I an asshole? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And do that excavation.
They don't see it. They just assume that their way of being is natural. Like, this is how everybody should be. But if someone treats them that way, they're like, oh, why are you acting like this to me? And and I talk about therapy, and I also, because I'm, a pastor and someone who believes in God, that therapy and spirituality are closely aligned.
Yes.
And teachings of my Christian faith definitely influence these notions of love and compassion and service and care for others. That this life that I have doesn't just belong to me; it's here for service and for the healing. The part of what I'm supposed to do is take part in the healing of the world around me.
A responsible human being.
Well, I'm trying to be. On my best days, on my better days, maybe not the best, but on my better days.
Well, we all do that. It's like if we are aware, we are responsible for one another. It's that we wake up with that goal in mind. We may not always achieve it, arrive at it, but if we're moving towards that, we're more likely to do good as opposed to doing harm. And if we do harm, we're conscious enough to go, ooh, I'm sorry, and acknowledge it and take responsibility for it. So I think accountability would be a great thing in this time.
Yeah. Oh, well, yes. We do need accountability on all levels of life, government, business, whatever, academia, whatever, policing, mayors, governors, take your pick.
Yes, honey. Yes.
As you were talking, it made me think of something I want to revise. I've talked about the notion of being dirty. I don't think I saw myself as being dirty. I saw myself as being imperfect. Like the notion that I grew up with in this small, highly religious Black community in Northeast Florida was that if I was perfect, then I could be lovable. and I think that relates to the history of white supremacy and slavery in the U.S. But it's some aspects of the Christianity that I was taught that because this thing happened to me, it made me feel imperfect, and therefore God could not love me if I was imperfect. So it wasn't the dirty; it was the imperfect piece. That was the theology of the notion of talking about God that needs to be transformed.
No, yeah, thank you. I think we find the words as we get older and find the words as we go through the process of healing. And probably at some point, dirty might have been the word you would have used, but now it's not because now you know better, like what was going on. So that's oh so true. I remember the part about God loving us all, and that sometimes in the church that message gets said, but the action doesn't actually happen by those around you. And I think for me, because my mom was a minister up in the church, and I think the thing that helped me, I was 22, 23. It was a television show, and it was Touched by an Angel with Della Reese. And that show truly helped me as a gay Black man because she said, God don't make anything broken or make any mistakes. And at every episode, they always said, God loves you. And it was the 2 episodes where 2 characters, Natalie Cole played a character who had AIDS, and a violinist. I don't think it was a violin. It was the other instrument that looks like a violin. Yeah, he was dying of AIDS, and then he was crying, "God doesn't love me," and she said, "Baby, God loves you. He don't make no mistakes." And it was just sort of, I bawled on that episode because it was like a revelation because you didn't hear that a lot back then. So doing that work is important.
So that was about what year?
I was 23, I think. Whatever Touched by an Angel came on.
Sometime?
It was sometime in the 90s, I'm sure. No, early 90s? Early 90s. It was been so long ago because I've been so out and free. It's like... Yeah.
Well, some of the work that, you haven't asked me this, but I'll tell you, some of the most powerful experiences that I've had in my life was that when I was just completed my first year of seminary, so I turned 24 that summer, and I was working as a hospital chaplain. What 24-year-old knows about people being in the hospital with, going through life-threatening illnesses and experiences? I don't know why I was there, but I will say it's one of the most formative experiences I've had in my life. Being in Atlanta, Georgia, summer of '94, sitting along the side of hospital beds of men who've been rejected by their families, who've been told that God did not love them, because of their experience of the virus, or because they were gay, or whatever it was their life experience, and knowing that I'm here as a conduit, as an ambassador, or representative of the church and God in this very religious southern community of Atlanta, and to let people to hold their hands and sit by their bed when no one else would go, and mom and daddy wouldn't go see them anymore, and they've been told that they're written off, and to be able to say, like, God loves you as you are, felt like the most grace-filled moment in my life. And I think in the process of believing it and saying it for them, I also had to believe it and say it for myself. Yeah. If it's true for them, it also had to be true for me.
Amen. And I think if you say it and hear it enough from yourself, you gotta either go, I'm being artificial or I'm being authentic. And it tells you that immediately. It's like, oh, I can't say that because I don't believe it. But yeah. Look at you, giving back. 24 years old.
Turned 24 there that summer. I was 23 when I started. I felt like, oh my Lord, what am I doing here? Yeah, I wanted to hide my age, but you are where you are. You do what you do.
Exactly. You were meant to be there at that time.
And I'm grateful for it.
What is something that has annoyed you, and why? And what did it teach you or show you about yourself?
I'm not I tend not to be, or at least I believe myself not to be a person who complains about a lot of things. But of late, I think as I've grown more into myself as a Black gay man, and to experience the institutionalized racism that happens, and the homophobia that happens, the transphobia that happens, the classism that happens in our country. It's this whole experience of white supremacy and imperialism that happens in our country, or in the country and the world, but I mean, really in the context of the U.S. And I think as I found more of my voice to stand up for queer communities and for Black communities, that it's definitely given me greater insight and being able to speak to the institutions of white supremacy that happen.
Would you say that evolution or that awareness? I know it started off with an annoyance, but you had to see it. When did that? Would you say that awareness started to present itself?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a one moment. I mean, I grew up in the South. I grew up in Florida, so I mean, racism has always been there, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm blessed to have grown up in the family that I did. Both my parents were teachers, and so I was encouraged in education, but I think I was also treated different than some other Black students in my classes, um, because they knew my parents. They expected more from me. I got better treatment, I'm sure, um, but that doesn't mean that racism and white supremacy wasn't a part of my life.
Yeah.
I think as in growing up in the South, also you don't have the. I mean, it's still very segregated, and it's a white dominant culture, and so you don't have the. I didn't feel the freedom of voice, and the culture didn't. Even the Black community around me didn't, I'd say, encourage us to speak up as adamantly as some people are today. You see this movement of youth who were naming it in schools, and in the public, the civic sphere, and in politics. I just don't feel like I was as empowered then to do it as I am now. And as
Right.
as a teenager, even as a 20-something-year-old, I spent a lot of time in white dominant spaces. And now as an adult, I can choose to extricate myself from those places, or to change my sense of being when I'm in those places, and not. I mean, living in Seattle, the experience of being a Black gay man there, and the ways that, like we talked about, there's a limited Black community. The culture of Seattle is largely through, white techie bro thing. But as Black men in predominantly white spaces, often we get marginalized, we get objectified, we get overly sexualized. We're made to be this exotic thing, and I just, came into myself at a point where I just couldn't tolerate that anymore, and became more willing to speak out on my own behalf and the behalf of others who share my experience. So there's not like, I don't think there was one moment. I think it was just like a growth in myself and not allowing my voice to be silenced anymore, my truth to be silenced anymore.
Yeah. Because the hope is if you're in it at some point, there's a rattling of the cage that has to happen because
Mhm.
otherwise you just sort of suffocate. Yeah, because I think that's one of the reasons I left Seattle. I was like, gotta go,
You and
love
me,
you, but
both of us. Um, I knew I needed to leave Seattle if I wanted to grow and to be the person I am, and I'm still growing into that person. But had I stayed there, I think, and I'll say this, that I think being in predominantly white and being in white dominant spaces is damaging emotionally, physically, and spiritually for Black people and other people of color. It is, and even if it's not intentional, but I believe it is intentional. That it's just hard for us to be in those places, without having some portion of our truth, our identity being, sort of whittled away. And that was a regular occurrence. Just trying to have a social life in Seattle, and it took a lot of work to build relationships with folks who really saw me as a whole person and not just whatever pieces of me they wanted to accept. So yeah, I was happy to move to New York, to move to Harlem, and to just walk down the street and just be a Black man, and just like almost, um, visible, but not like standing out. And when I lived in Seattle, I lived on Capitol Hill, and in that neighborhood, people knew who I was because I was the black guy who lived in that block and in that house, and because there were a lot of black people in that neighborhood. And progressively, as in the 19 plus years I lived there, black community got pushed farther and farther south out of the city, to real estate, as all the things that happen in the tech industry and real estate and finance really excluded a lot of black people from wealth and stability in that community, gay or otherwise. So.
Yeah, that was my experience when I came to Oakland. There was just this hum I could feel when I walked down the street, and I couldn't. I was like, because I came here for work because we had an office here, and I could just feel this vibration just by walking down the street where I didn't feel invisible like I did in Seattle,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't feel. It was twofold. I didn't feel invisible, but I also didn't feel like I had all eyes on me.
Exactly.
So it was one of those two experiences. I was either invisible or everybody was watching everything I was doing. And in Oakland,
Right.
just walking down to the drugstore, I just felt this like, it felt natural. And it was like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. And
you just got to be. You just got to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just got to be another black man walking down the street.
Yeah.
In a place that posed no threat, largely posed no threat to you, unless there was policing or something,
It was the best thing. It was like, okay, I'll be here soon, and I was. So, yeah, that experience has been one that I will hold on to. And when I think about buying a house somewhere else, I think about that because Oakland has gone through its gentrification as well, and so it's everywhere. So I'm trying to
possibility, but Oakland for sure is definitely. I don't know if it's reached the cusp. It used to be black. Jason, my husband, is from Richmond, and talks about it not being what it was.
Yeah, we're holding on as much as we can, but as you know, real estate prices are like woohoo, and if you weren't lucky enough to get in on the early side,
and I mean, but that's part of the practice of systemic and institutionalized discrimination of excluding black and brown homeowners from wealth and employment and stability, so that others can come in and benefit off of our suffering.
Yeah. And to this day, I tell people that I know, black and brown folks, buy something. I don't care what it is, if it's a condo or a townhouse, just buy something because that creates that money in which you can then put a down payment towards something else. So that's my mantra. Buy something. It is totally possible. Don't let them down payment. No, buy something. Please, please, please. So if you could change the world or one person's impact on the world, what would that be? Who would that be? And why? So you get an option. You could change the world. What would that be and why? Or if you could change one person's impact on the world, who would that be and why?
Well, if you choose the right person, you can change the world, right? So, I mean, the first person that comes to mind is this, again, hopefully outgoing president, trusted outgoing president. I think in the immediate sense, the destruction that he's done to the democracy, to the notion of democracy in this country, I think will be felt for generations. Looking at the judges that he's put in place, the environmental regulations that he's disbanded, some of the financial decisions he's made. Hopefully, the new administration can amend some of that. But I think structurally, the U.S. government will not function in the way that it has. Right? I felt like the U.S. is a I don't want to say a failed experiment, but it's an experiment that's still going forward, and we've hit a number of snags along the way. I don't think it's fully failed because we're still here and we're alive. But I mean, if I could remove this administration from the history of the books, that would be. I'm not saying I'm just erase it. We could erase and do a do it. And not that I'm saying Hillary Clinton would have been a savior for anyone. Definitely not saying that. But the destruction done by Trump and what he's unleashed in this country, um, the hatred, the vitriol. It's like we're in an emotional or political civil war without the. I wouldn't say without the guns because there are a number of us who are not. Um, yeah, I mean, there are children in cages of parents who will never see their children again because we don't know where they are, who they are, no age or label them. The experience of black and brown men and women, trans folks, all of that. So I think I'm sort of wandering through this conversation, but I mean, the U.S. is in a time of, or should be at a time of reckoning. I mean, I think we're seeing ourselves in a way that we've never seen ourselves in our lifetime more fully. I mean, it's always been that we're seeing ourselves more fully. And I do believe a lot of that is because of the leadership, not the leadership, the presence of this current administration.
Now he is quite the figurehead because I've said this to people in conversation is that he's only given license to what was already there, and just now it's just sort of it's come from under the dirt. The dirt has been moved away, and now they can stick their heads up. And you usually need to do a couple more whack-a-moles, but the thing is, they're still going to be there, and we just have to revamp. We need to. I don't know who I was talking to, but to your point, none of these presidents are saviors. They're just people who we hope won't do as much damage. But we as citizens need to be a lot more participatory because I think we don't. For the longest time, I don't know when I started, the whole midterm elections, right? People don't participate in that. And those are the ones that actually have an impact on us. It's like your senator, your congressperson, the judges. Those are the ones that we really need to pay attention to. The president's just some role, but if we don't put in place people that are for our benefit, nothing will change. So I think this cycle, this moment in time, I believe has revealed to folks what they really need to start doing is to actually participate in our democracy, because otherwise it will move along without you and crush you if you don't.
Yeah.
So,
and I will say, I mean, continuing in this line that speaking as a person of faith, I mean, there is going to be suffering in the world, and I don't believe in a prosperity gospel where just because I believe in God that my life is going to be perfect and I'm going to have wealth and security and all these things. Like my security is not in this world or in these people, but I do feel like the work that we're here to do is a work of justice and liberation, and there's still a lot of liberation to be found. I mean, we are not truly free in this country. We're bound by the wills of just an elite few with power and wealth that impact our lives. And this is not the experience of what true beloved community is, as Martin King talked about, and sort of a common table where everyone can come together. There should not be, this many billionaires and millionaires who have voice and power to impact our lives. I don't think there's anything wrong with working, doing a good job, and having wealth, but also the system should not be built toward aligning and amassing power for those folks at the detriment of people can't, get health care. They can't get to the doctor. They can't pay for medication. They can't pay for food. And the degree of poverty that's experienced in this country is not what I don't even want to say we're a Christian nation because we're not. We use religion to our benefit when it's effective for us, but otherwise there's nothing that reflects
That's a whole nother topic. Huh? We can talk all the humanitarian and yes. What would you say was something that has brought you or continues to bring you joy, and why?
Mm, um, I'll go back to the first question. So it's the relationships that I have. It's the people in my life who, like I said, we haven't spoken in months, and we get on the phone and kiki and cackle and laugh and just get caught up, even in the midst of coronavirus pandemic time, because you know that those relationships are lasting and life giving and healing. That's one thing. The relationship with my husband, Jason, being able to like continuing to grow and to figure out what does it mean to be in a partnership, in a marriage, in the midst of a lockdown. When I see you every day, you can leave your socks over there. Why are your socks over there? Okay, why I'm complaining about your socks being over there? Jesus, like the ways we just get to experience relationship and humanity. Like, do these socks really matter? No. Oh, those are my socks. Dang it, his socks. Anyway, so I mean, like that's a way that I get to grow, and gives me joy. And the arts, I mean, I love even in this time being able to view dance and theater, to read and to have my life shaped by the creativity of others. Like that stuff fills me. And it's like a respite, like sometimes it's like a nourishment to my soul in the midst of these long sort of days. I woke up yesterday and I was like, is it Thursday? It's Sunday. I couldn't remember because I knew I had something to do that day. I had this presentation to do, and I was like, "Is it a work day or a not work day? I don't know what it is." So, being able to have moments of art and creativity um, have been, given me great joy. And then I will also say the decision that we made to be in Barbados, it feels sort of decadent, and it felt there's a part of me that felt a little guilty about coming, about leaving the U.S. in the time of the election, because I felt like we should be on the ground and be in the struggle and be on the streets regardless of what happens. Like if things went poorly or continue to go poorly, whatever, like I should be there, because of the justice values that I have, because of the belief in community that I have. And then Jason talked to a friend who said that especially for Black people, especially for, Black people right now, that this is an act of radical self-care, and taking the time, having the opportunity, having the resources to be able to step away for a month or so, is more nurturing to our spirit and will sustain us in the long haul than, being in the city and living in the stress of that.
Yes, I'm glad Jason had a friend who said that, because we should not feel guilty for if you have the ability to take care of yourself, which takes care of your spirit, which enables you to return to the fight, because the struggle continues no matter what. It's like, but to be able to go back to the fight during the struggle, you got to have that ability to, I need a moment. And we're in it 24/7, 365 days of the year. So, boo, Barbados was calling you. And honey, if I could, I would be somewhere basking and keeping aware of what's going on in the world. But
absolutely,
like, we don't really have the ability, even though you are away, you aren't checked out, right? And I think that's the difference for us, is that we don't ever have the ability to check out because we are part of what gets impacted. I know there are folks in my life who have the ability. Oh, I can check out. I can go away, and none of it's at all changing for me. It's just sort of like, I can go and sit on the beach, and the world can go on because I'm not being impacted. But you're still impacted no matter where you are, where we are. So, boom, have a cocktail for me later, please.
There's some wine chilling in the fridge. I will go downstairs and sip for you.
Thank you. Yeah, keep on them shorts, and yes, just go. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Is there
self-love. Radical self-love is a practice that we should all get into, and it's hard right now because there's so, like the drudgery of this all this whole season of um, like the election happened on the third. We're still talking about it on the 22nd. You know, it's been too many days. You should have just conceded or just sit down, be quiet. Don't try to fight, make up lawsuits, and manipulate people. I wish it was over, but we're not. It's not over yet. It's not. It's not truly over yet until he's gone. And I pray that day.
Yeah. The thing is, he's shown us who he is and was from the very beginning. So I had a strong feeling this is how it would happen. I have a strong sense of the day of what is it, January 20th or 21st. We
Right.
will have images of him physically being dragged out of the White House, right? I I I could totally see that happening. I look forward to that happening because that will be the button or the cherry to his whole legacy. And
Yeah.
and it's like this is the legacy. The president, the outgoing president, was physically dragged from
Right.
the White House by
Mil-
Secret Service,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
that image, like infamy, it will go down. And it's like, and if that's the legacy he wants, oh wow, But that's who he is. It's like he doesn't care. He's one of those selfish individuals who has had everything handed to him, and at some point, as we all know, the karma train comes around. Who is someone that you admire and why?
I mean, in addition to you,
Oh, buddy.
it's true though. I love this vision that you have of putting the show together, and the way that you are creating a platform to share yourself, but also the people who are meaningful in your life, the world. So I mean, honestly, I'm being sincere. Um,
Thank you.
but the first person that came to mind when I thought of that was talking about art was Alvin Ailey.
Ah,
Um, and I know that you love the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater in the way that I do too. And um, this black man who had such passion and talent and artistry and beauty within um, in a time when there were no other black. I mean, like, well, I mean, there were some black dance companies. I don't want to, but to create the institution that he has, that has traveled internationally, almost every country in the world, and inspired generations like you and those who are still coming to see their beauty, their talent, and their potential. Like it's not just the art itself; it's not just the movement and the lines and like the way he would arch his back, but it's more so his his iconic gift of celebrating the black experience and bringing dignity to it, or elevating its dignity, and how so much of what we were given was meant for suffering, but we transformed it to gold. We've spun it, and that he inspires people outside of the world of dance too. So Ailey is Mr. Ailey is one of the people who's always inspired.
yeah. He's like what if we had to turn back then, he was the example of black excellence.
Exactly. Yes.
You know.
He lived.
Artist.
Wait, that's so funny because I know you have Hermit song, the photo, the Ailey photo. Is that behind you in the hallway?
Yes.
I just that's so funny. I was like, I know you have it, and I just saw it out of the corner of my eye for the first time. So it's
Now,
colors.
I've had that for a good long while, and when I bought this house, I wanted it. It's up as you walk up my stairs. It's at the top of the stairwell, so you see it. Every time you climb the stairs, it's like, yes,
I remember seeing it in your place in Seattle, and so
yeah,
I told you
yeah.
if you ever would have wanted. I've been actually trying to find it for years. I can't find it.
Oh, I don't. I have no idea where I got it. I've had it so long.
Yeah.
It's not on their website? Huh.
I think it's out of print.
Oh, that sucks. So I better keep this sucker safe.
You better keep that one safe. Absolutely, you should. Or just give it to me. So.
Yes, I hear you.
I'm glad you do.
What would you like to be remembered for by those who know and love you?
As I think of this community of relationships, the folks I've grown up with, and the relationships I've built as an adult, and this next generation of my family that's coming up, I want to be known as someone who was a model of love, of God's love, of compassion, love, but not just like a love, like just like a heart-to-heart love, but a love that some people say that love in action is justice, or justice is love in action. And so that the way that I live, that my actions actually bring about justice and help and healing. And again, that sense of liberation for people, whatever their experience might be, whoever they are, that they can live more fully into themselves. Hopefully in a way that transforms communities. That it's not just, it's the individual, but it spreads out beyond.
Yeah.
And that's
the impact
through my faith, through my relationships, whatever, because I have friends across the spectrum, but you can always share love with people regardless of who they are and how they.
Yes, love is action. It is not a stagnant thing. It is, you have to actually be moving towards something. You just can't just sit there and go, I am love. What you doing, boo? So look at you.
Yeah, but the way that I live helps people to live more fully into themselves, which I believe to be moving in the path of love.
Yeah. Because the energy you send out by being and moving through love impacts those, and they impact others. So it's that ripple effect of, yes, throw a pebble in a lake. There we go. Be the pebble, as I say.
Be the ripple. Be the pebble and the ripple.
Yes. Look at you. Yes. So, any regrets
in life? Regrets? I mean, it's funny you bring up that term, regrets. I made a sort of like a motto for my life a few years ago when my grandmother passed away. My grandmother lived to be 96, and she passed away in I can't recall which year she passed away. Early 2000s, she passed away. And I came up with a slogan for my life, my motto, which is love, faith, passion, no fear, no regrets. Which basically, I mean, you get the love. Well, I want to do things rooted from a perspective of love. I want to be passionate in the way that I live my life. Love, faith, and that faith roots me in what I do. I want to be passionate about it. And then no fear, and that doesn't mean that there isn't fear, but I try to, when I have fear, try to confront the fear and not allow it to control me. And then no regrets, that, if I have an opportunity to do something or to say something, I try to take that action. So that's how, when you say regret, that's what it makes me think of. But regrets in my life, I would say, I wish I'd studied piano when I was younger. I wish I was a better swimmer. And getting back to what we talked about earlier, I wish I started loving myself earlier on, but I'm grateful for when I did. So there's no major regrets.
Yeah, because the regret would have been if you hadn't begun loving yourself, and then you were dead, right? So
yeah.
And you said it's never too late or too early.
It's never too early. You're never too late. It's always the time. Yeah.
as long as you do it. So, again, action. Yeah. Got to be action. Wow. Look at you. Anything else you would like to share to the people that may help them along the way?
I don't know if there is more to say. I feel like I'm sort of a one-note guy. Like
You are so not a one-note guy.
I mean, like I think love is the key. Love is the power. I mean, yeah. If you want real power, practice love. Like that's.
Oh my God, that's a T-shirt.
I was like, I don't know if I've said that before, but it's what came out in the moment. So maybe that's the thing. If you want real power, practice love.
Yes, that is. If you want real power, practice love. Okay, I might have to steal that. I'll give you credit, but I may steal. Yeah, borrow it. No, that's a really good one. That is a nice note to close on. If you want real power, so I want to thank my guest, Bertram Johnson, for joining me underneath the shade tree. And as he says, if you want real power, practice love. And as I always say, be fabulous, be focused, and be fierce. And I'll catch you again underneath the shade tree. Thanks ever so for joining us underneath the shade tree. If you enjoyed the show, please click like and subscribe, and be sure to join us next time. And remember, every day above ground is a gift. So let's do our best to make it matter with grace, courage, and no regrets. Now go be fantabulously fierce.